We here at the Movie Ticket Radio podcast salute all the YouTubers who do all their videos because, you know, I found out this is a lot of work. Hi, I'm J.R. Russ, and we're posting our podcasts here now just for more people to find and hear them. But, you know, John Landecker and I are pretty much radio guys. In fact, folks have said that we have faces for radio. That means no pictures, no video, no graphics, just this. So sit back and enjoy the oral experience, spelled A-U-R-A-L. That means sound, not what you're probably thinking.
Movie Ticket Radio.
It's Bondtober, and this is the Movie Ticket Radio podcast. I'm your charming and delightful host, J.R. Russ, along with Hall of Fame broadcaster John Records Landecker. And all this month, we're looking at the music in all of the James Bond movies. And today, we're even checking out the cars. So join us now as Bondtober continues. Okay, moving on. Here we go. 4 Bond movies in 4 years. Now, Thunderball, 1965. The DB5 makes another appearance, and in addition to the tire cutters, ejector seat, smoke screen, bulletproof thing, they also added high-pressure water hoses. So as Bond flies out of that castle he's at, the guys are chasing him, and he turns on the water hoses and knocks all the villains down, who didn't think to just step over 4 feet one way or another. He just ran. Let's run right up directly behind the car and shoot into its bulletproof plate and get hosed down.
Yep.
As I mentioned earlier, Thunderball by John Barry, lyrics by Don Black, and Tom Jones singing it and nearly passing out in his loosened bustier. Plus, again, the James Bond theme in 007. Let me point out, there's a lot of music in these movies, but it's all background score type stuff. So,
film score stuff.
Yeah, we're not going through that.
No.
There was a song entitled Mr. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and Shirley Bassey sang that, and it was originally slated to be in the movie. In fact, it was supposed to be the theme song, and then it was re-recorded by Dionne Warwick, but Albert Broccoli insisted the theme has to include the film's title, and a new song was composed and recorded at the 11th hour, performed by Tom Jones, and the melody of Mr. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang remains a component of the film score. If you listen to the Movie Ticket Radio Bondathon, you will hear a version of Thunderball, not the same song, totally different, done by Johnny Cash.
Interesting.
And it sounds like a Western. It's like, Thunderball is coming strong. Thunderball is gonna...
We're riding and we're roping.
Yep, once an hour, there's a non-Bond song in there.
Yeah.
It's an hour of over 100 Bond songs with some of those background scores, the ones that have a real melody to them.
That's great.
So now we jump ahead to You Only Live Twice. And this was 1967 on this one.
That's just Nancy Sinatra. I rest my case.
As good or not so good?
Not as good as Shirley Bassey.
No, but I think the best rendition.
It's okay.
Leslie Bricusse wrote the lyrics. John Barry, again, your composer. Second highest grossing movie of 67 after...
The Dirty Dozen.
You're right. Exactly right.
How about that?
They call us the Dirty Dozen because we never take a bath.
Because we're dirty and there's a dozen of us. And we're like eggs.
Nancy was asked to perform the title song after Frank passed on the opportunity.
They didn't ask Frank Jr.?
No, they should have.
Yeah.
He sounds a lot like him.
Totally.
And Julie Rogers sang the original theme that was considered, but it didn't make the cut. And Aretha Franklin and the Walker Brothers also did a version, which I believe I have both of those on the Bondathon.
Very nice.
So we move on to 1969. We kind of skipped a year here. And this is because Sean Connery quit and they had to do a search for a new Bond. And OHMSS came out.
On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Again, it had an instrumental theme by John Barry. Very good theme, actually. And the closing theme, We Have All the Time in the World, which was also played as an instrumental through the movie, written by John Barry and Hal David of Backrack David fame. And this year, that song has been used as the closing title again for No Time to Die. And that was the last thing that Louis Armstrong ever recorded. And George Lazenby is the only actor to get a Golden Globe nomination for playing James Bond.
Which shows you the credibility of the Golden Globes.
So, moving along to 1971. Diamonds Are Forever.
That's what they say.
Again, John Barry, Don Black, the lyricist, Shirley Bassey, her second time, another good one, and the James Bond theme by Monty Norman. And this was the second of 3 James Bond songs that she sung, and Burt Reynolds was the original choice to replace him, but wasn't available. John Gavin was signed, but he was in a movie called OSS 17 as a French spy, Murder for Sale. Oh, good name. And he couldn't do it. Adam West, the TV Batman, also turned down the role because he thought it should be a British actor. And Michael Gambone turned down the role because he was in terrible shape and had boobs like a woman, according to him. That's a quote. And as of this recording, did you see No Time to Die yet?
Not yet.
All right, I have not either, so we don't have to worry about spoiling it for us or others.
Right.
I think someone already has for me, but I kind of suspected things anyway, so we'll see. But, you know, there is so much Bond stuff as we try to recant songs from the entire James Bond catalog. Plus, the sidebar of a special feature that I think you and I both like are Bond cars. Cars of any kind, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think we're going to really stretch this thing out. And it's looking pretty good. In fact, I've decided to just name this whole series of podcasts as Bondtober.
I love it.
I think we're just doing a whole Bondtober thing.
You got it. Welcome to Bondtober.
Yep, that's going to be our whole theme here this month because we're already on podcast 2. And this one is kind of interesting because we've finished with the Sean Connery era and George Lazenby. So we're going to move on with Roger Moore and Live and Let Die. But something has come up. As I was doing some research, I ran across this autoblog.com. I mentioned that at the close of the last episode we did. And there's a writer there. His name is Riswick, James Riswick. Sounds British, doesn't it?
Totally. Yes, indeed. Spot on, actually. Brilliant.
And he wrote this article, all 24, not counting the current one, Bond movies ranked only by their cars.
That's cool.
Yeah, so this is a totally different take. And so I wanted to spend some time on that before we continue on with the music and the movies. And so I'm going to start out with number 24. And he says there are virtually no cars in Moonraker.
Right.
Yeah, so it rates the lowest.
But there's a gondola on wheels, but that's not a car. There's a golf cart, that's not a car. There's an ambulance, that's not a car. And there's a space shuttle, and that's not a car.
No, it does have wheels, but
it's not a car.
No, so
no.
Moonraker 24 out.
Right.
Then he moves on, and in the books, James Bond mostly drove an old Bentley. And in From Russia with Love, it's the only film in which it appears. And there were no other real specialty cars in it.
Right.
Now, the 22nd rating here that he has is the Bond car of Dr. No, and it's a Sunbeam Alpine.
Hey, just a little personal injection.
Okay.
My uncle had that car.
Really?
I have been in a Sunbeam Alpine.
Wow.
Sunbeam Alpine. Nothing to write home about, but what a coincidence.
What was the most famous use of the Sunbeam Alpine?
You mean for my uncle or for James Bond?
That made it most notable.
I have no idea.
I'll give you a hint. TV show.
A Sunbeam Alpine?
It appeared in the opening credits. 60s TV show.
You got me. I don't know.
Driven by Maxwell Smart.
No kidding.
Yep, when Maxwell pulls up to the front of the building and starts to go down that corridor with all the doors.
Gotcha.
He drives a Sunbeam Alpine.
What do you know?
It was in the earlier ones. Then he switched to another car, which escapes me now. But, yep, Sunbeam Alpine there. So if you ever look at an old Get Smart episode, it's there.
Okay.
And that car was actually borrowed or rented from a woman in Jamaica named Jennifer Jackson for 10 pounds per day for 2 days during the filming. Didn't say 10 pounds of what?
10 pounds,
money
in currency.
Okay.
I think that would be about $20.
That's a darn cheap car rental.
Yeah, I'd like to get that today.
Yeah.
Kidding. It won't happen.
No, good luck.
Right.
I've got to take a trip and I'm going to be renting a car and the car is going to cost more than the airfare.
Absolutely. Oh, no question about it.
And it's like, Toyota Corolla. It's nothing special.
No.
Thank you, pandemic. Now we're on to James Riswick's and Autoblog's number 21 list of their vehicle classifications. And he says that their classification board, I guess they actually have a classification board, determined that a Kenilworth big rig is not a car.
Therefore, right.
Well, License to Kill's climatic big rig chase scene does not count toward its overall score.
No. Now, the film does have a Maserati biturbo driven by the bad guys, a blue Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow 2 driven by Q, and a Lincoln Mark 7 LSC that Bond rents in the Florida Keys.
That was probably $40 a day.
Yeah, well, I certainly don't know.
That was a sharp car.
Oh, yes.
The LSC. It had a 5.0 Mustang engine in it. It was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Big, a whole acre of hood. Nice car. Now we're at number 20, and that's Live and Let Die. That's going to be the next Bond movie we look at. And once again, he says here there's no points for double-decker bus chase.
Or a boat.
No, but there is a big collection of, as he calls them, pimp-mobiles.
Well.
That's on display early in the movie on the East Side Highway in New York. And I noticed this too, just in watching the movie. It seems to be populated by the same 2 or 3 General Motors cars, mostly Chevys. Little product placement there.
Right.
Then number 19 of the best Bond cars would be the lowest ranking movie featuring the Aston Martin DB5. He says it's in the movie. It shows off a few gadgets like the water sprayer and a pop-up bullet shield, but it does so while parked, so not much action.
Right.
And you know that movie?
Thunderball?
Yes, exactly. The car was such a hit in Goldfinger that they brought it back in Thunderball, and they had to add a few more gimmicks. But really, that's only the place that it really shows up. So not much action
right.
overall. So the number 18 top car that Autoblog rates is the most noteworthy car in A View to a Kill, and that's a 62 Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud 2 that Avenger star Patrick Macnee drives as the chauffeur, was actually owned by Bond producer Albert R. Cubby Broccoli.
How about that?
I always thought it was broccoli, but they pronounce it broccoli, I've heard. And actually, they did use a different car when Grace Jones killed Macnee and rolled it into a pond.
Right.
And then also in the movie was a C4 Corvette driven by a Russian spy and a Jeep Cherokee driven by Tanya Roberts. And then what is probably the least James Bond car ever, a Ford LTD.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, that was a fun car chase through Paris where Bond also makes off in a Renault 11 taxi.
Not exactly your Bond vehicle.
No. 17 of the best Bond vehicles, as we count them down. Unlike the Z3 in 2 prior films, the future classic BMW Z8 actually shows off some toys that Q says it has, like little missiles that pop out of the car's fender vents, and we see Bond drive it remotely with a key fob.
Huh. By the way, BMW could only supply 2 early production prototypes to the film, and so the Bond production team had to build 3 more using BMW supplied parts.
Ooh, they call that a parts bin car.
Yeah, let's go to the BMW garage and put it together.
Okay, that'd be fun. That'd be kind of a fun job to do if you were mechanically inclined.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've had parts left over taking cars apart and trying to put them back together. Now, in Casino Royale, that's the number 16 Bond car, as the Aston Martin Dbs was featured. Much of the cool factor was already used up by the time it shows up in Quantum of Solace. It's in the pre-titles series. Later on, they have a Ford Ka. Never heard of that. That's a British Ford, I guess. And there's also a Ford Edge that showed up, and they're both powered by hydrogen.
I think we have a little product placement there from Ford Motor Company.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of that from just about all of them. I think we mentioned earlier on in the last podcast that ever since the Aston Martin, they had to buy the first 2, and after the sales went through the roof, they never had to buy another car.
Yes, absolutely.
We also mentioned this before, too, that in Diamonds Are Forever, director Guy Hamilton thought that American cars were terrible, so he took great glee in going out of his way to smash as many of them as he could during the Las Vegas car chase scene. And one American car that was definitely not terrible was the Ford Mustang Mach 1.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a red one. Oh, it had those great thin line white wall tires. Tiffany Case drove that and was involved in one of the worst errors in the movie. You remember what that was?
Oh, boy.
A continuity error, they call it.
No, I don't.
It goes up on two wheels, and it goes between two real narrow buildings, and it goes up on the right two wheels, and then it comes out on the left two wheels. But it's not wide enough for an entire car, so it could never change. And what they did was they did put a shift of the scene with the two of them through the windshield, but it's it's not possible that actually could have happened because the opening is not wide enough for an entire car to land on all four wheels.
Right.
Boo there. So now we go on to the cars in The Man with the Golden Gun. And this movie has one of the greatest car-related stunts in the history of the Bond series and probably in the history of movies. And that's a 360-degree rotation in midair of an AMC
Hornet.
Yep. And it was originally set up to be a Javelin, but that car was on the way out, so AMC wanted to use the Hornet instead, which was also a lighter car, so that probably worked better for the stunt. But it's an actual stunt that they did with a stunt driver, and they did slow it down in the movie because they thought it would happen too fast in the film, and the director didn't think that the crowds would believe that it was a real scene, and so he put in a goofy little slide whistle, kind of a... And he now says that he regrets doing that.
Yeah, I would think so.
Because it was a real stunt, and they really did it. And James Bond also drives as Rizwick calls it here, a hideous AMC Matador. That was Francisco Scaramanga's car that would end up becoming a flying car.
Oh, yes.
The wings bolted on, and off he went.
Yeah.
Now, the number 13 car has Casino Royale, and that's a story of Bond becoming Bond. So in Britain, the term Mondeo Man was used to describe a regular medium-class guy who drive a regular medium-class car like a Ford Mondeo. And therefore, Craig drives one early in the movie when I believe he's back in Jamaica, and that's what he rents there.
But soon enough, he's back to a 64 Aston Martin DB5 at a poker table. Then later swerves the DBS to avoid Vesper Lind lying in the road.
They said they rolled that car over a world record 7 times.
Wow.
That was a real rollover.
Man, oh man.
They tried some BMWs and other things, and that was the one that they ended up using.
My.
But yes, Bond wins the classic or iconic DB5 in the poker game, so that's when he's really driving. And then later on, he's got the DBS, so he's cooler. But there's something about that DB5. I'll get into that later. Then GoldenEye is the number 12 top Bond car, and Xena Onatopp drives a Ferrari. She's on a top.
Uh-huh.
She drives a Ferrari F355, and of course the Bond car was the BMW Z3, which just came out prior to the movie.
Right.
And it does none of the things Q says it can, and the car itself actually only had a 4-cylinder engine.
That'll never do.
No, and so Autoblog calls it lame.
Yeah, I agree.
The movie has a wildly amusing chase through St. Petersburg, but it says it loses half of its available points because Bond is driving a tank at the time. It was a good sequence, though.
He just loves those vehicles.
Yeah. And James Rizwick wrote that he hates Die Another Day and feels that they jumped the shark, or in Bond parlance, cloaked the Vanquish. And his number 11 top car was the Aston Martin Vanquish in that movie that can turn invisible because it has LEDs on one side and cameras on the other side, and it makes it look like it's not there. It's a cool car, and it's in the ice battles with a weapons-filled Jaguar XKR.
Right.
So now we're into the top 10.
Good.
Die Another Day.
Mm-hmm.
Spectre features James Bond in a gadget-laden Aston Martin and bad guy in a Jaguar. The Aston Martin DB10 was made specifically at the request of director Sam Mendes after seeing a sketch of something like it at Aston headquarters. And while the Jaguar CX-75 was a one-time concept car, the initial production plans were canceled 2 years before Spectre's release. That would be that car's only glory, the DB10.
I believe the actual pronunciation is Jaguar.
Jaguar. Well, it's kind of like Porsche and Porsche. It's a Porsche if you own one and a Porsche if you don't.
Well, you know, all I'm basing it on is some Jaguar TV commercial I heard. As far as I'm concerned, of a Jaguar.
Well, that's because you don't own one. And if you owned one, then you would be more specific.
Oh, I see.
Jaguar. The Jacksonville Jaguars.
Uh-huh.
That classy team that, as of this writing, hasn't won anything yet. Now, Tomorrow Never Dies, the number 8 car, that's a BMW 750iL luxury sedan, and it's decked out with 12 cylinders and 12 rockets in the sunroof.
Well, you're going to need all of them. You're going to need the cylinders. You're going to need the rockets. You're going to need the tear gas and the re-inflating tires, the electrified door handles, and a cable cutter.
Yep, and let's not forget the spikes that drop down from the bumper.
But no air. No, I'm kidding.
No.
Oh, and Bond can drive it with his cell phone.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Hope he's got a good plan.
Yes, I'm sure he does.
And also the Brosnan Bond DB5 makes a brief appearance, he says here. So on to the number 7 top Bond car, as reported in Autoblog from the movie Octopussy. And the car-related action is among the best in the series. The famed chase filmed, and I think this is pronounced Udaipur, India, where the crowd and traffic weren't always aware that filming was taking place.
That is crazy.
Could you see that in the Loop in Chicago?
No.
There's a dude on a bicycle that rides between the tuk-tuk little taxi wagon and the baddie's Jeep, and that was not planned. He's just some guy going to work.
Unbelievable.
And Bond ends up driving a black Mercedes W123 on train tracks, and there's a stolen Alfa Romeo. Romeo.
Yeah, it's an Alfa Romeo.
GTV6 that Bond uses while evading the BMW driving Polizzi. And James Riswick says it's definitely the coolest car in the film.
How about that?
Now, after a long absence in Skyfall, the number 6 car is actually our old friend coming back, the gadget-laden DB5.
Good to see it again. Missed it.
Yeah, where Bond goes back to his roots at his childhood home. And it doesn't really make sense, as he says, but, well, what do we care? We do not. The scenes involving the car are pure Bond perfection, and he calls the DB5's second greatest appearance. We get some real action in the pre-titles with the Land Rover Defender, but that old DB5 is blasted to hell with a helicopter shooting at it and blowing it up. It's
right.
It's literally shot.
Oh, yeah.
Top 5. Now we're into the best Bond cars. The autumn-colored Lotus Esprit Turbo.
That's a cool car.
In the movie For Your Eyes Only, gold wheels, and they call it a deeply desirable car.
Yeah.
Beautiful and achingly cool. Sort of like Roger Moore, actually, he says.
Oh, okay.
It's one of 2 Esprits in For Your Eyes Only, and the other one was the white one that succumbs to its own anti-theft system.
Yeah.
He and the young lady are out escaping from the villains.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And as they're running up to the car, some guy goes to break into it, and when he breaks the glass, the car explodes.
Right.
It's kind of a self-defeating burglar alarm. Then she and Bond have to rely on Melina Havelock's wheels, which is that ugly, may I say ugly canary yellow Citroen 2CV.
You may say that, yes. That is allowed.
They run down the hills, but they said that was supposed to be in there. It's like, yes, from the coolest Bond car to the ugliest Bond car, that he would never be caught dead in. And fortunately, he wasn't.
Good.
Number 4. Now, in the movie The Living Daylights, the Aston Martin makes a return after 18 years away from the franchise. Roger Moore never, ever drove one. And the Vanquish is featured throughout the film in both convertible and coupe styles, and it's ferrying Bond around England first, then Czechoslovakia, where he says it sticks out like, well, an Aston Martin in Czechoslovakia. And he calls it the quintessential Bond car. OHM SS.
On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Yep, and in a nice email I got from James Riswick, he said this is his favorite Bond theme. He liked this the best. He said how much he likes Bond music, and I told him, well, we're your podcast, pal.
That's for sure.
And Movie Ticket Radio is your streaming movie hits format at movieticket.radio.com. And by the way, anybody listening, you want to write to us, tell us your favorite Bond cars, movieticket.radio@gmail.com. But in that movie, it would be the last movie for Aston Martin before it disappeared for those 18 years and 7 films. And it's somehow fitting that it was a green DBS. That's an indelible part of the film in the pre-title sequence where Bond drives it onto a beach to save Teresa Di Vincenzo, also known as Diana Rigg, as we mentioned the Avengers earlier.
Yeah.
And as a little side note, they did drive the car on railroad ties covered with sand because it was not four-wheel drive. And then it was also in the final moment of her death. She was in that when Blofeld and the henchmen came by and shot the car up and killed her.
That's the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah, you know, you marry Bond, you die next to Bond. It happens. She had good times, though, because she also got to drive, as he says, the real automotive star, and that was a 69 Cougar XR7 convertible with a 428 Cobra Jet engine.
That would do it.
Yeah, so at least you could die knowing that you at least did that. And I don't think this is a big spoiler. No Time to Die is kind of an homage to On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and that Hunter Green DBS shows up in it again. I'm not real crazy about the color, but the car is definitely cool. There's also a strong argument for the number 2 car that made the Lotus Esprit so special. That drives into the sea and turns into a submarine.
Is it actually a car, though, if it turns into a submarine? I don't know.
Well, that was a question there that Riswick actually posed. They used 7 Esprit body shells in the transformation sequence, including the final submarine, which is actually a fully functioning watercraft, and that would cost nearly $1 million today.
Wow.
But that Lotus Esprit was pretty cool. Yeah. And drum roll, please. The number 1 Bond car, as rated by Autoblog and James Riswick.
The Lotus Esprit.
No.
The DB5?
Yes.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, he did say that the Lotus Esprit submarine was a cooler car, but in the end, there's nothing like the original.
Nothing. Great car. I think that's the one that's associated with Bond anyway, regardless of all these other cars.
Yeah, he said it played such an unforgettable role in Goldfinger. Yeah. It might as well have been listed between Sean Connery and Gert Frobe in the credits.
No doubt.
It's what defined the area of the Bond car as something exotic, packed with gadgets, and I added sexy.
Woo!
And also in No Time to Die. I think the DB5 should get top billing as well for a really good scene in the opening sequence of the movie where they use all the toys, and it's a pretty heavy-duty action sequence.
Yep.
They must have used a really nicely restored one because I saw the movie in IMAX, and it just looked gorgeous, that paint, before it was all shot to hell, of course.
Yeah.
Now, I will say one thing about that car. I never cared for its derriere. The front of the car is so cool looking, but the back looks like it's something from a 49 Chevy or something. I don't know. I didn't care too much for the styling of the rear end, but, well, that's just me.
Oh, I've heard that before.
Yeah.
How many times have I heard that?
But the movie also includes supporting roles of the then new Mustang, the iconic 63 Lincoln Continental, you know, the Kennedy assassination car with the suicide doors, and then the Ford Ranchero, where Oddjob brings the crushed Lincoln back from the junkyard, and of course Goldfinger's Rolls Royce. Ultimately, though, you watch the third James Bond film for what is widely construed as the most famous car in the world. Yay!
And that's the Aston Martin.
Yep, and I wonder if Elizabeth Hurley's podcast, The Most Famous Car in the World, will check us out and give us a shout out, because I let her know through her Twitter account that we're mentioning her podcast.
Cool.
She's the one that's offering I think wasn't it $100,000 reward for the recovery of this iconic car?
I'll trust your word.
Okay. If not, I hope we don't have to put up the rest of the money.
Yeah, that could be a problem.
All right, John, now we're going to move on to a few of the James Bond movies that are going to hopefully take us into a more contemporary era. Okay with you?
Yeah.
Next time we'll check out the music in the Roger Moore James Bond movies and maybe Timothy Dalton's too, as we stretch this through all of Bondtober. So thanks for listening. Like and subscribe and tell your friends and just generally help us out. And if you want to comment about anything or question or add something to it, movieticketradio@gmail.com is our email address.
Okay.
I'm J.R. Russ.
I'm John Landecker. Bye-bye.
Movie Ticket Radio.